So that was great. Thank you, band, for leading us in worship. I don't know how to take a hard right turn, so we're just going to do it. So there's these pictures. There's this thing that happened a while ago. I don't know if you're familiar with Will Ferrell or SNL, but he was on it one time. There's a sketch that he did, and it was like dog shaming. And this has become a thing that we've seen. I don't know. I'm not on social media a lot, but I've seen some of these, and they're pretty funny. So the dog has no idea what's being written, but this one says, "Happy birthday, Linda. Your cake was delicious. Tula ate the cake." There's a bunch of these. There's a bunch. I steal cookies from little kids in strollers and run away from them. Willis has no idea what he's saying. This one says, "This book survived World War II, but not me." This is the last one. "I chewed the face off a stuffed elephant." Now, when I saw this, I wondered if the owners actually put the face through the elephant, or if the dog just was like, "No, my face belongs here." Psycho. Yeah, that's a fun one. Here's the thing that I enjoy these, but there's this thing that we all in our society enjoy as well, and that is catching people. Like, we're infatuated with trying to catch people in the moment where they're wrong, where their lives are falling apart. We love the gotcha, don't we? I mean, this is social media 101. Like, if you can find someone that is getting caught in the moment and create a post, it's going to blow up. It's going to go viral. Right? This is why TMZ exists as a whole, because of the gotcha moment. I mean, most of the political interviews that you see, the interviewer is just trying to have that one singular moment that's going to blow up and catch them saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, right? I mean, think about the celebrity DUI photos that you've seen. I'm not going to put any of those up because I don't want to take shots at people. But think about those. Like, we love to see those. I mean, we don't love to out loud, but internally we're like, "See, I knew they were horrible people." We just can't get enough of catching people in the act of something wrong. We are more concerned and preoccupied with catching someone than we are actually with the whole idea and premise of the series that we've been in now for a couple months. The focus of this series, what our world needs now, and I've told you that from day one, from the get-go, like, this is week 8, so we've been in this for a while. The same idea, the same answer has been to this question the whole time. And it's that the world needs more Christians to be more Christ-like. Like, if just we, as a Jesus follower, if we would just decide, I'm going to live like Jesus. I'm going to pattern my life after him. The world that we know would change radically. It would be better. It would be improved. There would be more life in it. So we've been looking at these attributes of God, and they're compiled in this list, and there's more than those, but we look at this list, and it's the fruit of the Spirit, ultimately, in this letter that Paul wrote. He says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance," which is like patience, "kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law." Now, notice there wasn't in making sure that you catch people in the moment that their lives are falling apart. Like, that wasn't listed in any of it. Today we're looking at, like I said, part 8. So we're looking at gentleness today. That's where we're going to land. If you followed along this series, which I hope that you have, you need to go back about a month ago. I was talking about kindness, loving kindness. And if you remember that message, this one's going to fit like part B of that part A, even though this is part 8 of the series. I don't know if I got a little too into the weeds right there, but it's connected is what I'm trying to say. So you may want to go back and listen or watch that one as well. That one's on kindness. But kind of just to catch you up, there's a woman that's caught in adultery. And in this moment, I mean, it's so wild to me. In this moment, Jesus is teaching. Like, he's got a crowd of people around him. And the religious leaders drag this woman caught in the act of adultery in front of the whole crowd, in front of Jesus, in front of everyone, and they bear her sins in front of all of them. just to try to see what Jesus is going to do. This is like a double layer gotcha, right? They obviously got her, which it feels like it was a little bit planned. It feels like it was a little bit planned out somehow. But then they also, the bigger priority here was that they're going to catch Jesus. That either in his teaching, either he was going to have to go along with the law, which is obviously what they wanted, and ultimately that they were going to have to stone her to death because that's what the law said, or he was going to step away from the law and actually show kindness and love in that moment, show grace in that moment. So they felt like this was the perfect gotcha moment for Jesus. And then Jesus reaches in his back pocket and he's like, Uno reverse. How about that one? And he's like, you know what? How about those of you without sin in your life? You guys can throw the first stone. I'm not going to say don't do it, but just if you have sin before, then maybe put your rock down. If you don't have sin, then go ahead. I'll step back. It's fine. And he just kind of waits and he sits there. And the full measure of grace and truth is expressed. The crowd dissipates. Jesus has this private conversation with the woman. He's like, where'd all your accusers go? She goes, they left. He says, well, I don't condemn you. I don't condemn you either. Go and sin no more. He has the sin conversation. He has the truth conversation that she's living in sin. He's like, hey, this isn't good for you. This isn't good for your relationships, your family. This isn't good for your life. Go and sin no more. It's better for you to not. It's better for you to change. But he didn't throw the stone. He didn't condemn her in this public space. That was the goal of the Pharisees. How he handles this shows us exactly how to handle someone that is caught. I mean, this is the epitome of being caught. Publicly shamed in that moment where you have nowhere to hide. Interestingly, after this, after the list of the fruit of the Spirit, Paul circles back around a chapter later in chapter 6. And he kind of picks up on this gentleness idea some more. He says, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit. Now, first of all, just to point this out, he's saying Jesus followers. He's not talking to people that are not Jesus followers. He's talking to Jesus followers. If you've made this decision that you're going to follow Jesus, let me tell you your job in this moment. And some of us get a little too excited on the idea of that. You're like, wait. They're caught in sin and I have something to do? Fantastic. Let me pull my phone out and I'll start taking videos. Or maybe I need to call the news. Or maybe I need to call the pastor. Someone needs to know about this. Just a heads up, that's not where Paul's going to take this. We lean too far in this moment. Just as a knee-jerk, our natural inclination is we lean too far one way or the other. Either we press in too much and we're like, I gotta get my piece out of this moment. I need to make sure that everybody has eyes on them and ultimately eyes on me to know that I'm not the bad guy here. They're bad, but you can thank me for capturing their badness, right? We want that. We love judgment when it's about somebody else. The other way that we can lean in this moment is backing away from the whole entire situation. We're like, not going to touch that. Typically, that means that's because you've dealt with some guilt in your own life. You're like, I don't know if I can actually step into that because I got my own stuff. And so we don't say anything. We don't address the problem. This is the woman caught in sin, and you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to let it right out, see where it goes. I'm not going to affect it at all. And what Paul is saying is neither of those are the fruits of the Spirit. That's not the direction that this is. That's not what he's asking us to do. Let me get a little bit more personal. Have you witnessed this? Some of you might have actual experience in this when you or someone close to you or someone you knew were caught. And there's been a response, maybe even a public response, maybe even a public response in a church. I mean, this is... The way that church handles these things, it really just, it makes me sad. Because I think often we either call, I've seen it. People get called up front. They're like, hey, by the way, let's talk about you cheating on your wife. Cool. If we do that in front of everyone, that's great. So we should all just do that. Or it seems like at other times the churches are just, they just sweep it under the rug. They're like, no, we don't need to deal with that. You can totally keep your role. Yep, you can continue to be a small group leader. You can continue to serve our kids. Yep, don't worry about it. Just, don't do it again. And then we just forget about it, right? We've seen both of these extremes, and neither of them are helpful. Neither of them lead to that next step. Neither of them lead where we want to go. In these moments, our response is how others will view church, Christianity, and Jesus. These are big, terrifying moments. It should terrify you. Even if it's not you, when someone else is caught, your response is under as a Jesus follower, your response is under a microscope. Everyone is watching how you respond because you're representing Jesus in this moment. And how they see that is going to be how they see the church. It's going to be how they see Christianity. And it's going to be ultimately how they see Jesus. It's a big deal. It should scare you. You shouldn't be overly excited to jump in. You should recognize the power that this moment absolutely has. Have you been caught? Maybe not to that degree, where your life is falling apart, but in something. Have you been caught in something? Now, let me ask you this. When someone caught you, did their response add to your pain or alleviate some of it? Did it add to your guilt? Or did it actually help you catch your breath in that moment when you had none? We've seen the quick draw responses from church, like the Big C church. And it's judgment extremely fast, right? And if that was you, where you were judged instantly, and you're like, I never even got to share my case. Yeah, I was in the wrong, but no one ever knew the context of how it happened or why it happened, or no one reached out to me and checked in on me. They just essentially treated me badly enough that I never wanted to show up again. Or maybe even they asked you to not show up again. They're like, you know what, you're not welcome here any longer. And if that's you absolutely have had a bad church experience. And from someone in my seat, I'm sorry. Because we as people, we often don't handle this well. We don't handle this the same way that Jesus did, and the way that Jesus does. We've all wrestled with the potential gotcha things in our lives, right? I mean, every single one of us in here, we have something that we're trying to work on. We have something that we're trying to work through. And if someone else heard what you're trying to work through, they would be appalled. They would be shocked. And you're like, that's the gotcha moment I'm trying to avoid. And maybe even in your thinking, you're like, you know what? If I just had someone that could help me. Like you've thought, I can't do this on my own. I need someone else. I need somebody to pull me out of this pit. I need someone just to assist me. I just need somebody else to balance me so I don't lose my footing. I just need somebody else. You might have even thought as far as who you might talk to. And yet the fear of actually opening yourself up, of being vulnerable like that. You've seen too many bad church experiences. You've seen it go wrong too many times. You're like, I don't know if I can. And unfortunately, that keeps you in the same loop. That keeps you in the same rut. Maybe you even thought about how this might look, how it might change. But Paul ultimately, he says, depending on your experience, essentially, we assume that Paul has this statement about this. He says, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in sin, you who live by the Spirit should expose that person publicly. Based on your experience, that's what we assume, right? Yep, that's what I've seen. That's what I assume the Bible says, because the Bible's all about judgment. Maybe it's a little bit different. You live by the Spirit should rebuke that person quickly. That's my responsibility. They need to be rebuked. We should condemn them harshly. They need to feel the fire. They don't feel bad enough. I got to make sure that they do feel bad enough. This is that this is that moment when you're raising your kids. If you spank, and you're like, "Did that hurt you enough?" I'm not sure. You're like hitting your leg. Like maybe I need to hit a little bit harder because you're not crying quite enough. Like that. We carry that same mindset as an adult. We're like, "Nope, you need to get hit a little bit harder." This is actually what Paul wrote. You who live by the Spirit should restore that person, here's our word, gently. That's what Paul says we should do. When someone is caught, that we should restore them gently. That as Jesus followers, we are in the restoration business. The way that we restore someone is with gentleness. That is the flavor of restoration. Have you ever looked at a home like this one and you drove past, you're like, I mean, it looked like it was cool at one point, but we probably just need to bulldoze it. Like we just need to tear it down. It's probably, if it hasn't been condemned yet, it probably needs to be. Someone needs to stick their nose in there because that thing's about to fall down. It is no longer safe. We need to do something about it. And then you have someone that sees it. And instead of taking the easy route and saying, no, we just need to wipe it down, we just need to tear it down, we just need to run it over, we just need to wipe it out completely, someone sees what could be. Someone sees the potential. The reason why it's so hard, the reason why we wrestle with it so much, the reason why we lean into judgment, this might be painful to hear, is that we evaluate something as unworthy of the investment necessary to bring it to restoration. And we do the same thing with people. We don't verbalize that. We don't say, hey, I just need to write you a note. I have come up with the conclusion that you are unworthy of my investment of time and energy to restore you. So it's too big of a mess. Sorry. We don't say that, but we do that, don't we? This is what's natural. This is what's normal. Too big of a mess. Let me take a picture, and then I'll be on my way. You can just figure out how to get yourself out of the mess. Restoration people see beyond the mess. They see beyond the brokenness. They see beyond how it's been worn down, and they see the potential that lies there, that's waiting to be drawn out. It takes commitment. It takes construction, literally in these cases. It takes construction with our words and our attitude and our energy to build someone back up. We cancel people in the moment. We cross them out. It's very easy. Yep, can't be trusted anymore. Somebody else on my list, maybe off my list. But when we're the ones that need the restoration, when we're the ones that are in the gotcha moment, that have been caught, that's not what we need. We need someone to stand up when we don't have the strength to. We need someone to come alongside us and support us and encourage us and challenge us to leave your life of sin, to move away from this, to move on, right? That's what Jesus did with the woman caught in adultery. Leave your life of sin. This is the way forward. This is the direction. Come alongside and move you in that direction. And that's what our world needs. Restoring with gentleness isn't natural. But that's not what we do normally. But it is absolutely what we're asked to do. It's what we're led to do. It's what Paul is telling us that we should do. There's this incredible leadership book, and it's very well known. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen Covey. There's at least 40 million plus copies sold. So, I mean, fairly popular. Habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. And when we have a clear, defined goal, it changes every step that we take. When you know the exact direction that you're going to move in, it changes every step that you take to get to that direction, how you approach it. When the goal is restoration, when that is our goal, when that is the That is the target. That is the bullseye. Everything else shifts to that. Remember, someone's caught in sin. You who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. This is the goal. This is the direction. You can get caught, right? You can get caught in a net, or you can get caught by a net. Kind of the difference here. I like to go fishing, so we're going to use that as the illustration. Fish can get caught in a net. They're trapped. They're stuck. There's no way out until I take a picture with them, and then I send them on their way. That's what I do. I know you're like, you don't eat the fish? Not usually. You can also get caught by like a trapeze artist that's flying through the air. There's the big, massive net below. Someone's responsible for the net, making sure that it's tight, making sure it's ready, it's prepared. Or you can get caught in a net like a fish. You can get caught by a net. Just in case, when you fall, that it's there to catch you. Whoever is doing the netting, either way, is the one that has the power in that moment. They're the one that have the authority. They have the upper hand in that moment. If you've ever been there before, you know this. You have all the power. You have all the authority in that moment. We learned that people can't always be trusted in this moment. If you've experienced this. Because somebody else had the power over you. Somebody else had the upper hand over you. And what did they do? They took advantage of the moment. They made you pay twice. Because they held on to that card. They held on to that information. And they used it at their disposal so they could gain from that. Right? That's junior high. Welcome to junior high all over again. It's the worst. Sometimes people they wait to play that card. People confuse kindness with niceness. We talked about that before, like I said about a month ago. That kindness isn't always nice. And that niceness isn't always kind. We also confuse gentleness with weakness. Like, oh, well, gentleness, that just means that you're weak. That just means that you're not willing to take the stand that you need to. That just means that you're not willing to vocalize and verbalize the thing that you need. That means that you're not willing to make the person pay for what they deserve to pay. Gentleness doesn't exist without strength. Because gentleness is the exhibition of strength. It is withholding what you probably want to, what you feel like you should. It's probably what they deserve. And yet you're withholding the wrath. You're withholding that judgment from them because of how strong you are. We've had several dogs. And so Watson, we even had Hogan, Watson, Jovi, Miles now. And Luke can be thrown in the mix too. That's my son. I've wrestled with each of my dogs a little bit differently. Watson was like 120 pounds, big dog. He's golden doodle, and he loved to wrestle, and he loved to lay on me. I was like, he wanted to be a lap dog so bad. But we would wrestle. I'd throw him around, and then he'd come back over and lay on top of me. You have to be able to wrestle with the person that you're wrestling with control, right? So with all of my dogs, I could have pinned every single one of them very easily. I absolutely can do that with my son. But you know what I don't do? Overpower him every single moment. It's not about my ability. It's about my strength to hold back what I could do. But that is being gentle. Maybe another illustration, you're going to learn something about me. My family bought a parakeet farm when I was growing up. I know, lots of questions immediately. There's literally a barn with 10 to 12,000 parakeets in it. It's a lot. It's loud. I do not like birds. Here's the thing about parakeets and birds in general. Like we used butterfly nets to catch them. And you could catch them, and if you weren't careful, you could injure them while catching them. You just come through with some anger, and you could catch them. You could knock them down. You could knock them out. You could do all kinds of damage to them. Or you can scale it back and catch with a little more gentleness. That they're unharmed in the way that you catch them. Regardless of how you catch them, you're still in the position of power. You're still in that position of authority. But the way that we go about it is what makes the difference. In life, you're going to have these moments where people are going to be in front of you and you're like, oh, you just got caught. Like, I caught you. I was the person. You hold all of the power in that moment. And how you go about that matters. If you're going to choose to be gentle or not. Paul actually continues on. He says, but watch yourselves, or you may also be tempted. Now, this could be, and normally when we read this, we're like, oh, that just means like, don't get too close to the whirlpool, you'll get sucked in. Don't get too close to the mess, you'll get some of the mess on you, right? That's what our normal thinking is. But there's another angle to look at that. That we're all going to be in our own mess at some point. We're all going to get caught at some point. And how we deal with this person in front of us, we should have playing in the back of our mind. How am I going to hope someone treats me when I get caught? Right? Because you're going to get tempted at some point. You're going to fall at some point. How do you want to be caught? How would you want someone to treat you in the moment that they catch you? And this doesn't mean that you just let people skate. You're just like, don't worry about it, just go. Because that's not what Jesus showed us. Right? Jesus shows us that in the moment that this woman is caught, he gives her fully truth and grace, that he deals with the issue at hand, but he also extends full grace. It's the fullness of both, the full measure of both grace and truth. The reality is we can add to someone's burden or we can help carry it. You are in a very specific circumstance in that moment of how you treat someone that's being caught. Right? The difference here is either gotcha versus I've got you. When you approach with that mindset, hey, I know this wasn't easy. I know you know. But I want you to know that I'm here to help you. That I'm here to represent Jesus to you. And that means that I'm going to deal with this with sensitivity. I'm going to deal with this with gentleness. Right? It goes back to the goal, the target. Is it condemnation or is it restoration? That determines your approach on how you move and work through these scenarios. So let me ask you this question. Does our world need more condemnation or restoration? I have my own opinion. You can have yours. I think it's pretty clear, though. When we look at the landscape around us, we look at the headlines, when we look at the circumstance, we look at the interviews, we look at just how people treat each other. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say most of us would agree that we got enough condemnation, probably a little too much. We do not have enough restoration in our world. Let me take a moment. Evaluate your current relationships right now. Just think. Think about your kids. Think about your spouse. Think about your significant other. Think about the people that you spend the most time with, your friends. What do they experience with you? Which one of these would they say they feel more often? They probably wouldn't say that because they like you, but which one do they experience from you most often? What about people that are an entire different category of you? You're like not just the people that are near to you, but the people that you don't even have a relationship with. They're an entire other category of you. Like Republicans and Democrats. How do you think they would experience you? Maybe they do. You're like comments all over the place online. Right? How do they experience more condemnation or restoration? What about the rich or the poor? Like, do you have this mindset? Do you have this attitude? Do you express either condemnation or restoration more often when it comes to that other crowd, that other circle, those on that other side, whatever it might be? What about Jesus overturning the tables? I love this idea. Because we like to get there. Ooh, do we? Because there's this moment, if you don't know, there's this moment, Jesus is in the temple. He sees that there's money changers, that they're literally exchanging rates and stealing from people a little bit. They're also selling animals to be sacrificed in order to be made right in the temple. You had to sacrifice the right animal. So they would sell these animals to people that needed to get their sin, taken care of, and they'd overcharge. And Jesus in this moment gets so angry, he overturns the tables. Guys, he makes a whip. I don't know. Have you ever just sat down and been so angry you just wove a whip together, and the whole time you're just letting the anger build? He literally makes a whip and chases them all out. We love this idea because we want to be that. Where do I get to overturn some tables? Where do I get to create my whip? Where do I get to chase some people out? Let's think about this for a second. What was Jesus actually angry with? He was angry because people were minimizing others' ability to approach God. That they were keeping people away from God, from being made right with God. That's what he was angry about. That they were creating a wall, that they were creating division and separation between God and people. We get angry about a sin, right? That we get angry about a topic. In fact, most of you have a list of topics and subjects. You're like, A, that one, B, you just go through the whole list. You have your least, most favorite sin. I don't know. The sin that you get most upset about is at the top of the list, right? The difference between Jesus' anger is that it wasn't about a sin. It was about people being kept away from God. So what was God's response to this thing that he hated? Right? Because we can all agree Jesus hates sin. But what was God's response to that? Well, he sent Jesus to pay for our sin debt and die on the cross on our behalf. That was God's response. Jesus was angry, yes. But remember what he was angry about. When our community thinks of Canyons Church, is it thoughts of condemnation or restoration? When our community thinks of the church as a whole, Big C Church, what's the normal knee-jerk? What's their normal response and reaction? Which one do they normally land on? I hope we don't go along with the normal for everybody else. I hope that you find this community to be different. Not because I want to bash other churches, but I recognize the pain that churches have caused. And it's time that we intentionally moved in a direction that loves people first and foremost, that tears down the walls that have been created between God and other people. Because all he wants is to be with his creation and to be in relationship with them. And we who are supposed to be representing, we build more walls than anybody. By our judgment, by our condemnation. And it's time that we started to do something about that. What if people actually sought us out because they knew that this ecclesia, this community of believers, this group of people, that they're not going to add to my pain that I'm already dealing with. That it's going to be an opportunity for me to actually deal with what I'm struggling with, but also be loved. That grace is going to be found, but not only grace, truth is also going to be there. There's this balance, and it's not like 50-50, it's 100-100. What if we knew that, and we started moving people towards restoration rather than condemnation? What if that's our target? What if that's our bullseye? And I know we're not going to hit it every single time. Like we're going to miss. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to try, and then we're going to miss the target anyway. But there's this one. I don't know if I should say this is my favorite movie or not. One of them. But there's this movie, and it's about a shooter. And in that, there's this statement that's said often: "Aim small, miss small." Like when you have your target in your sight, aim small, miss small. pick this small piece of the bullseye out. And if you're so focused on that, then you won't miss by a mile. Aim small, miss small. That should be the focus that we have here as well. That we need to aim small and miss small. That we need to make sure that our focus, that our goal is on restoration, not condemnation. As we wrap up this morning, I do have a couple questions because I love to keep your thoughts going. Where have you seen someone's gotcha moment used as entertainment? How did you feel in response to that? When someone is caught, our culture often exposes them publicly, rebukes them quickly, and condemns them harshly. What makes us hesitant to restore them gently? Who in your life do you need to catch and carry with gentleness? Maybe a secondary point, who do you need to talk to before you get caught? Because there's some of us in here this morning. And you might be on either side of that. You might have a circumstance presented to you right now, and you are totally in the power seat because they've been caught by you, and you have a decision to make of how you're going to approach this, how you're going to walk this out. Some of us also might be in the other seat. Maybe we have been caught. Maybe we just haven't been caught yet. And my hope for you is that you wouldn't wait to get caught, that you would find someone that you know you can trust, that you would become vulnerable, that you would show them what you're dealing with and struggling with, and that you would allow them to bring you to restoration. That's my hope. I believe that's what God's hope is as well. Let me pray as we close up. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for everything that we do, because we have the opportunity to move in your direction. You've given us free will. You've given us the choice of how to walk through this life. And with gratitude, we approach you. With gratitude, we come to you and we say, God, help us in these moments when we can so easily destroy someone, bring destruction, bring condemnation. God, I pray that you would allow us to see from your perspective, from your angle, that this is someone that you love, someone that you care about, someone that you sent Jesus to die for. And I pray that in this moment we would represent Jesus well, with gentleness, restoring them. God, we thank you that regardless of what we struggle with, that you are greater than, that you are bigger than, that your love is enough and your grace is sufficient. And even though we might be scared, God, I pray that we would trust you in this, because you want to draw us out of the muck and the mire that we've been wrestling in. And I pray that we would move in your direction, that we would ask for forgiveness, that we'd stop running, that we'd start trusting. And again, that we would find someone that would help us move in the direction of restoration rather than fear and hiding. So God, regardless of what seat we might be in, I pray that we would trust you with it, that you give us the courage and the boldness to make the choice to love others well. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you so much for being here with us. We'll see you all next week for the conclusion of what our world needs now.